Welcome back to EDH on a Budget. I'm your host, Iceman. Today we're going to be going over part 3 of White Land Ramp, what I like to call Artifact Land Ramp. This section is not for just any white decks or decks with white. You have to have a strong artifact component where you want not just artifacts, but artifact lands. The number of artifact lands is going to vary depending on how many colors you splash into this white deck. But so far we have 3 cards. First card is Recommission for 20 cents. It's a sorcery, 1 and a white. Return target artifact or creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. If a creature enters the battlefield this way, it enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. So it doesn't say non-land artifact. There are quite a few artifact lands. You have some that tap for just white, like Ancient Den. You have lots of dual artifact indestructible lands. They come into play tapped, but there's one for each color pairing for the 2 colors. There's also Treasure Vault, which might be a little pricey. I think it's about $5, and it just got a reprint from Fallout, so it might go even lower in the months to come. There's also Power Depot, and there might be a couple others, but for the most part it's going to be your dual and your Ancient Den type board just taps for 1. Those are going to be the majority of your artifact lands. So if you get them into your graveyard somehow via discard or whatever, maybe you played a bounce land on turn 2 and you had an ancient or had a artifact land on the battlefield, maybe that's the card you discard then, and you play this on turn 3 and you get that card to the battlefield. It doesn't say tapped, so it's going to come into play untapped, so you can use it right away. It's also nice if your commander has 3 CMC or less. That way it's a good recursion for your commander. Evade that command tax. Next up we have Against All Odds. It is 3 cents. It only has 1 printing. It is a sorcery for 3 and a white, and it gives you the option to choose one or both. Exile target artifact or creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. Option 2 is return target artifact or creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So this is a little interesting because if you have an artifact land on the battlefield, you could tap it for mana, exile that artifact, return it to the battlefield. It would enter untapped. So it could be a little ritual that way. And then if you combine that with the return artifact from the graveyard to the battlefield, that also enters untapped. So it could produce a couple of mana the turn it's played. Plus that extra land from the graveyard to the battlefield would ramp you again. So that's interesting. Being creature or artifact is nice because, like I said, you want that flexibility. A typical ramp card like Rampant Growth is usually only going to be good in the beginning of the game, and it loses value, a lot of value, as the game goes on. Middle of the game, it's not exactly what you want to be playing because you're not going to get that land's value. And then at the end of the game, you're definitely not getting that value. That's going to be a dead card at the end of the game. You're not going to be happy to see that. Whereas this card, you're going to be happy to see pretty much at any point in the game that you have a graveyard. And even if you don't have a graveyard, it does have that exile, like flicker ability. So that's pretty good value. It is 4 mana, so it's not going to be as fast as the 2 mana ramps. But this does kind of let you set up your artifact decks first and then play it if you wanted. Next is Aos Awakening. This is a pretty new card. It's a sorcery. This card costs 7 cents. The mana cost is X, 3 white. Return target artifact or non-aura enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield with X 1/1 counters on it. It's a 1/1 spirit creature with flying in addition to its other types. So if you're using this to bring back an artifact land, it's going to turn into a 1/1 spirit artifact land creature, spirit creature. So it's got a lot of subtypes. And the +1/+1 counters not really going to matter too much most of the time. The spirit does have flying, so you could, if you wanted to, at the end of the game, you could use this to pump up that whatever artifact you're bringing back, or non-aura enchantment. So it could get in for some damage with the flying. Not everybody has lots of flyers. Again, I'm not saying that you should only use these for ramp, but in your artifact decks that have artifact lands, just keep in mind that these can be used to get those artifacts out of the graveyard and back onto the battlefield, which could ramp you. The next section will be catch-up ramp, and that is definitely White's biggest section of ramp cards, and I will go over how to use those most effectively and what White has available for those. If you like what you're watching, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.